So this is my UNS 60U 20-gallon mixed macroalgae display tank, and the reason I'm filming this now and not when the tank first started is because I want to continue the series from here. And I meant to start it at the very beginning of when the tank first started, but at that point there just wasn't a lot going on, so I had no really desire to film and edit, I guess. But now that things are actually moving pretty well, along with the tank, I feel like right now is a good point to start documenting the process of this tank, because if you've seen the other macroalgae builds on my channel, you know that those have not gone well. I made a lot of mistakes on both those builds. I've done 2 or 3 so far, and pretty much all of them kind of failed. Just straight up being honest, they did not succeed. A lot of them had issues that I did not foresee, and until now, it all started to make sense, which is why I'm having a lot better success with this build. So that is something I can talk about a later time, but for now, I'm going to give you a rundown of this macroalgae display tank that I have going on for me right now. So the filter on the tank is the Dymax SlimFlow 200, which is rated up for 25 gallons. And I took out the filter cartridges that came with it and replaced it with a bunch of biomedia and filter floss. And this is the same filter I had running on the Blackwater build, which I'm not sure if that one's on the channel. I think it is, but if you go to my Instagram, which I'll leave it on the description and the comments as well on the screen, you can see that whole, I believe it was about a year or 2 worth of documentation of that build. That was one of my favorite builds, and I can't wait to do more Blackwater stuff in the future, but I carried that filter over because it was still working. All I had to do was just clean out all the gunk and stuff that was in it, and then it was good to go. The heater is the Awaze 100 watt adjustable heater. That one was also on the old Blackwater build, and I just carried it over. And I actually was trying to experiment with putting the Awaze Filto Smart, I think it's the 200 model, on this tank. Since it is the canister filter where you can put the heater in it, it would just make for a cleaner display. But the tubes were actually too big to go inside the tank, which caused some issues, so I didn't go through with that. The wave maker is the Higer Nano wave maker that you find on Amazon. It's the first one that was it was the one that was on the first macroalgae build, which I believe was around 2 years ago. So it's still working fine for me, and it does still push out a lot of water, and it is a great nano wave maker, but I may upgrade that soon just because I do want to upgrade the display in the future. And the light is also a Higer full spectrum LED light, which was on a 55 gallon tank, but when I took that tank down, I put this light over to see if the lighting and the spectrum would be sufficient. And as you can see, so far it has been doing really great. So that's also a really good budget light. It is comparable to the Night Crew lights that are really popular as budget lights, but this one has violet lights in it, and I don't think the Night Crews have violet lights, and I just wanted to see if the violets would do anything for the macroalgae. So far I truly don't really know, but the light itself has been doing fantastic for this build. So far in this tank, I have 5 species of macroalgae, 3 species of coral, 1 species of invert, and 1 species of fish. So starting off with the macroalgae, we have Botricladia, which is the red grape macroalgae. We have Halimeda opportuna, I think is how you pronounce it, which is the green branching algae. There's Galaxera macroalgae, Bryothymonin algae, as well as this mystery algae that I'm not really sure what it is, but my best guess is it might be a Uchima species of macroalgae, but I did reach out to Russ from Gulf Coast Ecosystems to see if he can help me ID what the species is, but so far it's doing pretty well. So all these macroalgae so far are doing really well. The one I'd probably say isn't doing the best is the Bryothymonin, because it is taking a little bit longer to adjust, because you can see by the cleared tips, which means that that part is essentially dead. So I'm gonna have to snip those tips off, but everything else is doing pretty well, and especially what I think is this Uchima species of algae. It came in a red sampler pack from GCE, which is Gulf Coast Ecosystems, and it started off as this kind of main piece, and then it kind of collapsed and fell apart. But some of the branches I was able to salvage, and I kind of just put them throughout parts of the tank to see which part it would grow best in. And so far, I'm actually seeing growth and recovery within both the spots I put it in, because you can see the little spike coming out of it, which is new growth. And if it is Uchima, I'm gonna be completely surprised it's actually doing this well, because Uchima is kind of notorious for being a harder to keep species in macroalgae, and a lot of people get it because at first it's this really bright yellow color that's very attractive, because to my knowledge there are no yellow, like truly yellow macroalgae in the hobby, and yellow just adds a nice color in general. But then it tends to kind of go to a red color, and then it kind of just melts away in people's tanks. So if this is Uchima, I'm pretty surprised, because you can see that it's red, reddish orange. It's not yellow anymore, but it has not really died ever since I kind of spread out the pieces. And the other thing I'm be surprised about is because I'm not actually dosing much of anything in this tank as of right now, which I do want to change. Macroalgae tanks are pretty similar to freshwater planted tanks, which is why people call them marine planted tanks. But macroalgae need these different nutrients, phosphate, nitrate, iron. I'm not sure about magnesium. I'm not really too versed in that stuff. Calcium for a lot of the calcified macroalgae. So there is quite a lot of, especially when you get a lot of species in the tank, you do have to watch your levels and dose nutrients to get those levels into proper balance. So things like fertilizers and iron that we have in planted tanks, that also pretty much carries over to macroalgae tanks. So I do want to start dosing Kato Grow, which is the basically a macroalgae fertilizer, and probably I'll have to dose some nitrates and phosphates, because there's not many things in that tank producing much of those two elements, because there isn't much of a fish or invertebrate population in there that is helping produce nitrates and phosphates. And the only thing I've been dosing in here is Ferriern, which is basically the iron supplement. And just like in planted tanks where red plants take up iron, and dosing iron can help red plants achieve that really red color, the same thing applies to macroalgae tanks, where red macroalgae do use up iron for that red color. And I've been dosing a bit of Ferriern here and there, because I do have quite a few red algae species that are all competing for the iron, and that's basically the only thing I've been dosing in here. So without any fertilizers, I'll be extremely shocked. I'm actually still extremely shocked that everything is growing pretty well without the fertilizer help, but soon enough I do want to start getting back into that dosing regime. Of course, I would like a lot more macroalgae species in here. The next few ones I'm looking at, I want them to be not red colored, because 4 out of the 5 species in here I do have right now are red macroalgae. So the next ones I want are a couple of species of Caulerpa, maybe some of the calcified macroalgae, such as the pencil cap and rhizo something. I forgot its name, but it looks like a mini Christmas tree. That one's one of my favorites. Mermaid's fan is another good one. And the top of my bucket list right now, I have blue hypnea and cryptonemia macroalgae. Those are some of my favorites, and I'd love to get some in here too. So I did see Gulf Coast Ecosystems is now getting in cryptonemia here and there, so I'll have to get it whenever that comes back in stock. But yeah, that is all the macroalgae I have in here now. I am really excited to get more within the coming weeks. Also, sorry if you do hear a lot of buzzing outside. Here in Washington, we're going through a heat wave right now, so a lot of people are running their window AC units. It's actually right now in the upper to mid 90s. So yeah, a lot of people are trying to cool down, but with cooling down, let's talk about the coral that is in here. So right now, the 3 species of coral are the Florida Recordia mushroom, pulsing xenia, and the tan spiny gorgonian. And all of these add a very interesting characteristic to the tank. My favorite right now might be the tan spiny Gorgonian, because I've always wanted a photosynthetic Gorgonian. I've kept some of the non-photosynthetic ones in the past that did reasonably well, but a photosynthetic one just grows at a faster pace, I've seen, and specifically with their height. In my well, the ones that we get for sale are a lot taller and bigger than the non-photosynthetic ones, because usually the non-photosynthetic ones are mainly frags. But if you do get them from a place like Gulf Coast Ecosystems, they send you monsters of Gorgonian sizes. So this one specifically adds a lot of height to the tank because it is on the shallower rock, but it does almost stretch up to the surface of the water. And so far, it has been a fast grower. I've seen at least 3 new branches form, and a couple more that are on the way. And also the polyp extension is really nice on this one. When it is closed up, it does have a kind of grayish color, at least when I pulled it out of the bag. And I think that's just because of shipping stress. But now that it's really settled in, you can see that the polyps are tan, and its flesh is also kind of a more peachish color as well, which is how it should be. And the pulsing xenia is awesome as well. It is starting to move. How do I say this? Some of it is starting to encroach off of the frag plug that it is on, and might start moving to the rock, which I will have to look out for, because I do want that rock to be a Florida Recordia garden. So I'll have to look out for that. But other than that, it is pretty fluffy. And I do like the pulsing motion. Even with it getting some flow, kind of moving back and forth, it still pulses, which is what I really like about it. And the Florida Recordia that is in there, that is actually a wild collected one from the Florida coast by Gulf Coast Ecosystems. It is the shallow water variety, because they mentioned that they collect a deeper one as well. That is a bit more expensive, but these ones are actually just $5, which is really surprising to me, because it came in at a pretty good size and it has been steadily growing. This is the aqua green variety. If you go on their website, you have a mixed blue and green variety, which is their deeper water one, and then this aqua green one, which is the cheaper one. And yeah, it is aqua green, but it has some hints of yellow, and I think some purple in there too, which is really awesome. And that one's been steadily growing, and that spot for it, since that one is doing well there, which I was hoping for, and thank goodness it worked out. I do want to add more Florida Recordias there, just because it is doing so well there, and a Florida Recordia mushroom garden always looks very nice. Now, I would like to get more coral for this tank, as I mentioned earlier. I do want a lot more of the Florida Recordia mushrooms to make a nice little garden. And I think more specifically, I'd like a few non-photosynthetic Gorgonians. Specifically, probably a yellow finger and a purple Leptogorgia are two that I want, and that I love to put on the left rock structure, which is the one that has the overhang. It looks more of like a cave system. I'd love to put those ones over there. And that's pretty much it for coral. So let's go on to the fish and invert section, because honestly there's only 2 species that we need to talk about. So as for fish in here, it is actually a pretty exciting fish that's in here, because they're kind of hard to come by, even though they are captive bred by Biota. This guy has been at the local fish store since March is what I found, and I picked him up about 3-ish weeks ago, and he has been reclusive for sure, but he does add that pretty good character when he is out. This is a captive bred Biota Trimus goby, otherwise known as the astronaut goby or the upside down goby, and I contemplated about this guy a lot. I always walked past it in the fish store, kind of watching it every time I did go, because it just never sold. And I think that is because it is reclusive and it is a cave dwelling goby, because it has taken up residence within that overhang and upper cave structure in the left rock structure of the tank. And because it has gotten so comfortable in there, I rarely see it out now. But when I do see it out, it is under that overhang, like they like to do in nature, where they do like to perch in caves and under overhangs like that on coral reefs. And because this guy is captive bred, he took to dry foods and frozen foods pretty well. What his favorite meal is probably live baby brine shrimp I've seen, just because they are more of sit and wait kind of fish because they'll just kind of wait on the overhang, and then when something comes by them, they will snatch it, which is kind of difficult to do with the frozen and dry food. So with the brine shrimp kind of swimming around in there, he does go after it quite a lot. And I don't have any video of this guy because he spends so much time in the caves, which is why you've just seen pictures of him. But hopefully once they do get more different gobies in here, he will maybe feel feeling to come out more and be around more of the other fish. And as for inverts in here, we just have, I think there's around 10 seraph snails in there that I also got from Gulf Coast Ecosystems. There were 12 to start out with, but I know at least 2 of them died, but I still do see quite a lot of them. So I'm just going to assume 10 is still there. These guys are honestly pretty fun to watch for snails. They move a bit faster than, let's say, like astral snails, and they're also pretty entertaining to watch scoot around the glass and eat the algae on the rocks. I think my best moment watching them was when one of the pieces of the red grape macroalgae came in and it was adjusting to the new tank. So there were some white spots or dead spots in the algae, and specifically there was this one branch that was white and completely dead. So this one seraph snail came over here. I don't have any videos of it, but it came over and it started munching on that branch because they do like to eat algae. And I was watching it munch through it, and then the branch fell over, kind of like if you're cutting down a tree, which I thought was kind of funny to watch. And other than that, we have a really massive population of pods and isopods in here. So the exact species of isopod that is in here are muted isopods, I believe is how you pronounce that. But these guys are a healthy isopod to have because they do act as a live food source for fish, which I think is what the goby has also been eating. And they also help clean up little microalgae on the glass and on the rocks. The only downfall of them is they do like to munch on a red grape, Butcher Claudia macroalgae. And you can see on the left piece, there are a couple bite marks from those muted isopods. But other than that, the algae does grow back faster than they can eat. So I don't have any particular worries. And they, again, are also just a food source and a cleanup crew. So I just let them be. And there are an absolute ton of them, as well as an absolute ton of other species of pods in there that are all on the glass. And there are a ton of them on the glass, and there's probably a bajillion more that I don't see, that which are in the sand and on the rock. And that's a good thing because I want to let my pod population build out. So in the future, I'd love to add a pair of blue striped pipefish in here because they are one of the pipefish species that can go in a nano tank. And so far this tank is 4 months old and the population has been booming because there are no fish, and the only fish that is in there is not an active hunter or very active fish. So they have a very wide range of no predators to eat, that can eat them. So they've been breeding pretty rapidly, which is really awesome. And other than that, there are some other things in there, like little sponges that popped up on the Florida Recordia rock, which those are harmless filter feeders. And that's pretty much it for stocking in there. Fish wise, again, I would like to add a pair of blue striped pipefish in here. But other than that, I would like to add a plethora of nano gobies, being from the genus Trima and Eviota. We already have the Biota Trima striatum in there, and I'd like to collect as many different species of goby from those two genuses to put in here because they don't produce much bioload at all. Actually, very little bioload. You can house them in groups. They're pretty colorful, and they all exhibit some sort of different behavior. Like there's ones like Eviota atraventris that are very outgoing, very colorful, and they're just out and about compared to other ones like the Trimastratum that I have that are cave gobies and cave dwellers, so they like to stick more towards the rock structure. And I think that's just a super fun thing to watch. And hopefully I can find a few more species sometime soon to add to here. And invert wise, I do want some more inverts in there. Obviously, a couple of different snails. Like I'd love to get some astro snails in there to help with the rocks and the glass. Some Nasari snails maybe. I do want a conch to help clean the sandbite as well. And then as for more oddball inverts, I'm not extremely sure because a lot of the ideas that I did have, like Lima shrimp or Peterson cleaner shrimp, um, turns out they don't do well over tanks realistically over 5 to 10 gallons, because they are so small. So those are out of the picture most likely. So I'll have to see what I find and what comes my way. And with that being it, that is the end of this tank tour. And I'm super excited to get the series going up, especially with some stuff I do have coming on the way. And this is also my first video in, what is it, April, May, June, July, 4 months. So yeah, hopefully I can start posting a little more again, especially with some of the stuff that I do have coming once I get back from my trip to Las Vegas and San Diego. So if you want to see pictures from there, go follow me on the Instagram. And with that being it, my name is Northwest Escapes, and I'll see you in the next one.